In 1844, the map of the United States looked incomplete. Everything from Texas to the California coast belonged to Mexico. James K. Polk based his presidency on the idea of manifest destiny, the belief that the United States was inherently entitled to occupy the entire North American continent. Polk initially tried to buy the land, offering Mexico $30 million for the Western territories. The Mexican government refused to even meet with his diplomat. This diplomatic failure left Polk with the two choices: abandon his campaign promise or manufacture a military crisis to take the land by force. In January 1846, Polk ordered American troops into a disputed border zone in Texas, daring the Mexican army to respond. The provocation worked. On April 25th, Mexican forces fired on the American troops. Polk used the skirmish to draft a message to Congress, claiming that Mexico had invaded U.S. territory and shed American blood upon American soil. Congress approved the order for war on May 11th, launching the conflict based on Polk's description of the event. Polk's war was a calculated, engineered trap designed strictly to acquire Western land. On the ground, the war was a series of lopsided engagements. American forces were consistently outnumbered by the Mexican army in most major battles. Despite the numbers, Generals Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott led the U.S. to a string of victories. The campaign ended in September 1847, when Winfield Scott's forces marched overland and captured Mexico's capital, Mexico City. The momentum of the American military victory entirely broke the Mexican government's ability to resist Polk's territorial demands. While the army celebrated in Mexico, political friction grew at home. Many Northerners rejected Polk's narrative of a defensive war. Northern politicians suspected the war was a Southern plot to add new territory specifically for the expansion of slavery. Even some within the military held deep reservations. Second Lieutenant Ulysses S. Grant fought in the campaign, but grew to despise its purpose. Grant later called the conflict one of the most unjust ever waged, arguing that the United States had followed the example of European monarchies by ignoring justice to acquire land. Beneath the military success, the issues of slavery and imperialism were already creating deep divisions in the American identity. The war officially ended in 1848 with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. In exchange for $15 million, Mexico surrendered its hold over California, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and all claims to Texas. This map shows the outcome of that transfer. The United States now controlled a continuous landmass stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific. These new borders finalized the shape of the continent we recognize today. Polk had successfully fulfilled his vision of manifest destiny, but the acquisition came with a political cost the nation was not prepared to pay. The victory immediately created a crisis over what to do with millions of acres of new territory. The question of whether to allow slavery to spread into these new Western lands became the defining issue of the era. This debate drove the North and South further apart, moving the country toward secession. The war's veterans included young officers like Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee, who fought side by side to conquer this land. Only 13 years later, these same men would lead rival armies against one another to determine the fate of the land they had won together. The military success that secured these Western territories became the primary trigger for the conflict that nearly destroyed the United States.